Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be ranking the entire Friday the 13th franchise. So I was really hoping that we would have a Friday the 13th land in more of a summer month because this is so much more of a summer franchise, but we can only do so much here, so we are going to go ahead and do it in March. I do have to say an obvious spoiler warning for this entire franchise as well. So, if you have seen my birthday horror video, you might have an idea of what I'm going to put in my very bottom spot. But if you haven't, without further ado, here is my number 12 spot, and that is the original Friday the 13th. Now, before you click off of this video, I have to explain there is only one very specific reason that I am putting it this low in my franchise ranking, and that is, of course, the fact that they did actually kill that snake that you see die in this movie. So, the more that you look into this, the worse that it gets. So, you know, I just always thought that this was good effect work by Tom Savini and stuff, but nope, he actually did die in here, this poor snake. And I think that what would have made a little more sense would have been if it was just maybe a pest snake that had wandered in where they were filming, and they didn't go about it the right way and they decided to kill it instead of capture it and release it like any good person would do. But no, it was not that either. It was actually a crew member's pet snake that they decided to put into the film randomly. And they didn't even tell the crew member what they were actually going to do with the snake when it was going to be part of this movie. So they just killed it and they had no idea and they were heartbroken. When I tell you that you would not need Pamela Voorhees to go on a spree for this one, if someone did that to my pet, I mean it. I think that this is just honestly disgusting. And, I get the fact that this was not a time period when they had strict laws about what could be done with animals as far as movies go. But I truly am so upset by this. I have seen it so many times. Despite the glaring flaw with this original film being that, Jason is not the primary antagonist here, I did still have a lot of fun with this one, and I would rewatch it usually any Friday the 13th that would pop up before I knew about this, along with other better movies, in my opinion, in the franchise. But now I'm never going to do that again. The only time that I will ever watch it again is if my son decides that he would like to see it at some point, and then we would definitely be skipping this scene, of course. But, you know, whether it be Harry Crosby, the actor that actually killed the snake, Sean S. Cunningham, the director and creator of this franchise, or anybody else that was to blame for this goes, like, I think that they should definitely be held accountable for doing this to the snake and stuff. And despite the fact that this movie has merit, sucks to suck, it's always going to be in the bottom spot for me, no matter how many other movies we get in this franchise. So now, with that rant out of the way, we can move on to the rest of the ranking of this franchise. In my number 11 spot, I do have Jason Goes to Hell. So this one does suffer from the same problem that we have in that original film with Jason not really being exactly the primary antagonist. With this one, he is actually possessing different people. So for a lot of the film, it's not really Jason coming after people. And that definitely does hurt it for me. And then when we actually do get Jason in here, I do not really like the look of him at all, unfortunately. But I think that another aspect I don't really like with this one would be the fact that I don't like the final girl. However, you are going to hear me say that for a lot of the movies in this franchise. They just don't put the same care into their final girls that a lot of other franchises have. And actually, they do put in a little bit more effort when it comes to the final guys in here. And I actually do kind of like the final guy in this one. I think he's fine. I don't necessarily think that he's like a huge standout or anything like that, but I do kind of like him in here. So some of the things that I do like about this one would be, first and foremost, there is the actor that played Rufus in Supernatural. He is a character in here, and I am a big fan of that show, so anytime we get something like that, that makes me happy. But another aspect that I like with this one would be the fact that we have Jason going after a baby, and I think that definitely ups the ante a little bit. It makes it a lot scarier. And then the other thing that I like would be just that little shot that we get that teases Freddy versus Jason. But beyond that, I just don't really have that good of a time with this one, and so it's got to be pretty low in my ranking. Now, in my number 10 spot, I do have Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And this one, I think that the characters are a really big problem for me in this one. So, Rennie as a final girl, I think she is incredibly dull. I think that her romantic counterpart, the final guy in this one, I think is also very dull. I think that Rennie's uncle is not a likable character either. And there are a couple of the smaller actors and actresses in here that I think are a little bit memorable. The guitar girl, I feel bad, I don't even know her name. I always remember her specifically. I like her parts in here. Not that we get a lot of them. And then the other one that's kind of memorable would be Julius, but honestly, he's kind of only memorable due to the fact that he gets decapitated by Jason in here. And I don't know if that's the reason you want to necessarily be remembered in this movie. But what I do really like about Jason Takes Manhattan would be the setting. And it doesn't really matter where that setting is, whether it be the houseboat in the very beginning or the larger boat that they are on for most of the film, or the stuff that we have in Manhattan. I kind of like all of it. As far as Manhattan goes, though, I really obviously love the shot of Jason in Times Square. That is one of the most iconic images in this franchise, easily. And I also really like the stuff that's on the subway. But other than that, I don't really like the Manhattan stuff. I think that it's also just like super weird that Rennie gets captured by those thugs. I don't like that aspect of this movie at all. I think it's just really weird. But I do have to say that I think Kane Hodder does a fantastic job as Jason in this one. I like the look of him. I like Wet Jason. I usually hear people call him that from this one. And there are some good deaths in here as well. But I just don't think that that is enough for me to get over the issue of the fact that I just think largely the characters are not very good in this film at all. But now in my number 9 spot, I do have Jason X. So I have said it on my channel before, and I'm sure I'll say it many more times, but I am not that into sci-fi, so it was kind of obvious to me that I was not going to end up liking this one as much as some of the other films in the franchise. So this movie just feels unbelievably cheap. It feels like a straight to Sci-Fi Channel kind of movie, and I did watch a lot of those types of movies growing up, but I have since gotten to see many, many other films that are of so much better quality. So I don't really have a lot of love for that type of thing anymore, or movies that are similar to it, like this one. But I think that the look of Uber Jason is just not for me either, unfortunately. But there are still some fun things to this one. First off, I actually really do like the final girl in this one, and it might just be the fact that she is vastly different from most of the final girls that we get in this franchise. But I do like her for the most part. I think that there are some memorable characters in here. I like that we have the like companion robot lady. That's kind of interesting, kind of weird also, but I do like that to an extent. I also like the little hologram version of Camp Crystal Lake that they put in here to throw Jason off at one point in the film. But the real standout for me in this one would, of course, be the fact that it actually has the best kill of the entire franchise with the liquid nitrogen kill. I don't think that any could ever top that one for me. And there are a lot of really cool ones in this franchise, that's for sure, but that one is just always going to be peak for me. And I do have to give this one credit for the fact that this is Kane Hodder's final performance as Jason in this franchise. But it's still just not that enjoyable of a watch for me. So now in my number 8 spot, I do have Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. So I would say from this point on in my ranking, I actually do enjoy these films. So with The New Blood, I think that you have to give this one credit for the fact that they did try something very different here. I think that this one is called Carrie versus Jason for a good reason. You know, we do have a character that has telekinetic abilities in Tina, and I really like her as a final girl. I think that she is very likable and just interesting because she has way more to do and just a lot more interesting of a backstory. However, I mean, I don't like the backstory in the sense that like she feels bad about everything that happened with her father and stuff because he just obviously wasn't a great guy in the first place. But I really do like Tina in here, and I really like Nick, her final guy counterpart. I think that both of them are really good together in here, and that is, you know, more of a selling point for this one. But I think beyond the two of them, a lot of the side characters are not very good. I also think her doctor is just a really crappy individual. I don't like him at all in here. But I think what is more fun about this one would be um, more of the kills and just the fact that this is Kane Hodder's first performance as Jason in this franchise. I think that he looks very good in here, and he's just a, you know, pretty scary presence as Jason. But the real standout for this movie would just be the fact that we do have more of an actual match for Jason and Tina that we have gotten at this point in the franchise, anyway. And I just love their final battle that they have. I think that there are some really cool aspects to that. And I love when everything is like being caught on fire. All of that is just super cool for me. But I think that this one is one that I'm glad that I'm kind of coming around to a little bit more because I hadn't seen it as many times, so I don't have quite as much nostalgia as I do for some of the ones that are a little bit higher on the list. But I'm glad that it's kind of working its way up there a little bit for me now. So now in my number 7 spot, I have Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. And this one is one that has climbed way up in my ranking, and there was a reason that it ranked as low as it did for a long time, and it might not be the reason that you think. So, although this one is just similar to the original and Jason Goes to Hell, and the fact that it is not Jason that is the antagonist here, that has never hurt it for me or anything because even though it is Roy, it had always felt like Jason to me. It looks enough like Jason and stuff. So that was never an issue. But what really made me knock it down really far in my ranking for such a long time was that horrible redneck family. Oh my gosh. And genuinely, that part of this movie is still completely unwatchable to me. I cannot stand them at all. But I just was realizing upon rewatches recently that there are a lot of fun things to this movie. And so I don't feel like I can rank it quite as low as I used to just because of that one aspect of it that I don't like. So I think that the characters in here are pretty memorable, you know, even the side ones. When it comes to how I think I would have been if I was a teenager back in the 80s, I definitely would have been that weird new wave girl. I think that she is just really iconic. I always like seeing her in here. And I think that Demon and his girlfriend are both really interesting side characters in here. We don't get a lot from them, but specifically when we do get Demon, I think that he is honestly hilarious the way that he's used in this movie. So he is a standout for me. But I think that the major characters are awesome in here as well. I think, you know, when it comes to Tommy Jarvis, this is my least favorite performance of him, but I do still like him quite a bit, and I like what we get with him toward the end of the film, and we'll get more into that in a second. But I think that Reggie is a really underrated final guy, and I really like Pam as a final girl as well. I think the two of them are just an interesting combo to have toward the end of this film. And I just really like everything that we get with both of them. And I like the final act of this film where it is the two of them, as well as Tommy Jarvis, that are going to take down Roy at the end of it. I think that it's just really well done, and it makes me put this one a little bit higher than I would have originally. So I like that I'm coming around to this one as well. But now we are at the halfway point, and we're getting into the ones from this one on that I actually could say that I love. So in my number 6 spot, I do have Freddy vs. Jason. This is the long-awaited crossover that, all of the big 80s horror fans had been waiting on for such a long time, and I'm so glad that they finally got this film. And this is something that I didn't get to see until probably maybe 5 years ago, I would say, for the first time. So, obviously I wasn't part of that crowd with it or anything, but I'm happy that I finally got to see this one as well, because I think there's a lot of fun to be had with it. So right out the gate, I love the fact that there are multiple actors and actresses that have played bit parts in Supernatural in this movie. It's just really cool to see them in it whenever they pop up in the film. And I will say I don't really like the final girl in this one yet again, but there are lots of really memorable actors and actresses in here from that time period. I mean, this one does stand out to me a little bit with the fact that it came out since I have been alive, and not a lot of this franchise has. But with that, I do have to say one thing that I think ages very poorly in here. There is a specific scene with a very memorable actress in here that there was just some not so nice stuff said in it, and it does just kind of baffle me the fact that people were still saying these things since I have been alive and stuff. I don't like to think about that. Honestly, I felt like we had gotten past that point, but it just is kind of like that sometimes. You think that we're in a better state than we actually are, and there is a lot of terrible stuff being said now and stuff like that too. But it doesn't age super well, just that scene in particular. But beyond that, I think that this movie is a ton of fun. I like what we get with both Jason and Freddy. Jason gets to have the majority of the kills in here, since he's the one who is really able to do the killing more so. And he gets a really good one with that like bed folding scene. I think that one is one of the more memorable ones in the franchise, really. But I also really like some of the stuff that we get with Freddy in here. But the main standout, obviously, of the movie is when they finally get to go up against each other. It is just really awesome to see, and that is the true match for Jason that we can actually get. Because Freddy is obviously a much better match than Tina is when it comes down to it. But now, in my number 5 spot, I do have Friday the 13th Part 3 3D. And now, when I was talking about the original and how I would watch a certain grouping of movies on any Friday the 13th that came around, it was usually the first 4. And the third one was always the one that, like, I liked least out of that grouping, but that I still had a ton of fun with. So I would never skip it when it came down to it. I think that this one is a lot of fun, and again, I'm not a huge fan of the final girl here, but I do think that she's just fine. She just is not really a standout. I think there's some better ones in the franchise that I haven't talked about yet. And I think that there are some memorable side characters in here. Shelley is obviously one of them. And I think that it's very important to bring up the fact that this is the movie that Jason got his mask in. I know I've heard some people online that talk about how they actually prefer Sackhead Jason, but that could never be me. I think that the look of him being in a hockey mask is so much more iconic, and I just love seeing it. So I love that aspect that he finally got the mask in this one. And I think that Jason is just particularly creepy in this one. I think he's just really weird, and like he taunts her so much in here. So that's a cool aspect to this one. I will say there is one scene that I really don't like in this movie, and it is very similar to the annoying redneck family in the fifth film for me, and that would be the convenience store scene with that biker gang. I think that it is just so cringy and lame. I don't know if that seemed like it was intimidating at the time or anything, but I just think it is so beyond lame. I hate that part of this movie. But beyond that, I really like this one. There are some memorable kills in here, but the real standout for this film in particular would just be the really cheesy 3D effects. Um, you know, I think that that is just the most fun aspect of this movie. I do have a copy of the first four films, and this set came with the little blue and red 3D glasses for this movie, and they actually look like Jason's mask on them. I've never opened them, and I never plan to because I want to keep them safe. And I would probably puke if I tried to watch the movie in 3D in that quality anyway. But I just think that it does obviously date the film, but honestly, most of the ones that are early on in this franchise just seem really dated anyway. But I just think it's really fun and quirky, and I like looking at this movie just for those cheesy 3D effects. So now in my number four spot, I do have Friday the 13th from 2009. So this is one that I have come around to a lot more. And I liked it when I saw it initially. Honestly, I can't remember if I saw it in theaters or if we just rented it, really soon after it came out on video. But I thought that it was fine back then. I liked it enough. But I think that once I had watched this entire franchise, it just made it a lot better for me. Because when I saw this one, I had probably only watched the first one through like five or one through six. I don't really know for sure if I had seen Jason Lives at that point or not, because it did take me a little bit longer to see that one, apart from like the first five, and then the rest of them took me even longer to watch. But once I had seen the whole franchise and had seen the later sequels that I just don't really like that much and don't have as much fun with, I think it was nice to know that we had like Freddy versus Jason coming and we had this one coming, because that just meant that there were some more high points to be had again in the franchise, and it wasn't just downhill and no end in sight in that or anything. Um, but I think that this one is so much fun. And again, similarly to Freddy versus Jason, there are just tons of actors and actresses in here that I recognize just with growing up more in that time period, and that does help it a lot for me as well. I just think that the characters are all very memorable. Even ones like Trent, who is a total douchebag. I think that he was just played very, very well by Travis Van Winkle, and he is honestly a little bit hilarious to a degree in here as well. Um, and I really like seeing Aaron Yu in here. I am a huge fan of Disturbia, so I was really excited that he was a part of this film as well, because I had liked him so much in that. And then when it comes to more of the main characters in here, Danielle Panabaker, I think she does a really good job. I was a kid that liked a lot of Disney Channel stuff back then, and she was a big player in a lot of that stuff then. So I liked seeing her in this movie, and I was definitely heartbroken when she got killed off in it. I was not expecting that at all, because it just seemed like, she was going to be the final girl and stuff. But I think once Clay had found his sister, it's like, oh, I guess she's not important anymore or something. But I really did like her in here, and I liked how she played off of Clay. And speaking of him, Jared Padalecki is the star of Supernatural, so obviously that is awesome to get him in here as well. I think that he is just such a likable lead to put in anything, really. So, we were bound to get a good performance from him in this one, and that's definitely the case. But I think that some other things that I really like about this remake would be the opening scene. I think that it is just brutal and awesome. And Derek Mears as Jason, I think, is just absolutely relentless and formidable. And, you know, I've never really sat down and thought about what my favorite performance in any of the different movies is, like as far as Jason goes, but his would definitely have to be up there because it's just so good. And I think honestly, this is one of my favorite remakes from this time period easily. But now in my number three spot, I do have Friday the 13th Part 2. So this one I have to give major credit to for the fact that this has the best final girl of the whole franchise with Ginny. And I think that Ginny is just so charismatic and funny, but she's also, you know, very intelligent. She uses that knowledge of psychology that she has, and she uses the fact that she looks similar to Jason's mother to get herself in a better spot and, you know, confuse Jason and stuff. And I think that that is probably the primary reason that a lot of people might put this in first place. And I would totally understand that if someone did. It's just there are ones that I find a little bit better than this one, unfortunately, for part two. But I really do like the final guy in here, her boyfriend. I think that he is interesting, and I like some of the other side characters as well. We do have some interesting deaths. And the one that sticks out in my mind for sure would be the one with the guy that is in the wheelchair that gets the machete to the face, and then he ends up going down a whole bunch of stairs. I feel so terrible for him, but it is definitely one of the more memorable deaths in the franchise, that's for sure. Now, like I had said, I'm not a big fan of the look of Sackhead Jason, so that does, you know, knock this one down a little bit for me. And if he had his mask in it, honestly, it could have potentially been a little bit higher on my list. But now, for these final two in my ranking, I debated very hard. So there is one that I have had at the top of my ranking, just my personal ranking, for years and years. And then the other one is one that I've just come around to so much more over the last, I would say, 5 years probably. And honestly, it was just very hard to pick between them, but I ended up uh, kind of changing my mind on everything. And in the upset of, you know, my life as far as the Friday the 13th franchise ranking goes, I have to put in my number two spot Friday the 13th, the final chapter. So this one was the one that I had at the top for all of those years, and it was purely because of Corey Feldman. You know, I don't really follow him nowadays, but I think that back in this time period, he was just unstoppable. He was so fantastic in everything that he was in, whether it be Friday the 13th, the final chapter, or Stand By Me, The Lost Boys, The Goonies, or countless other things. He was just unbeatable at this time. And I really love him in this film. I think that he is super funny and just really likable in this role. And he is very similar to Ginny in the respect that he uses his expertise in, you know, like movie makeup and mask making to make himself look like young Jason. That way he can try to throw him off a little bit. And obviously he ends up actually killing off Jason, which I think is a huge feat, especially with the fact that he was a small child that was doing this. And I think that that is just the best aspect of this movie, easily. But as far as like the rest of it goes, I do really like the rest of Tommy's family. I think that they're all likable. We do have a lot of recognizable other characters in here. The one that sticks out the most to me would be Crispin Glover's character. The first thing that I had ever seen him in was Charlie's Angels when I was younger, and I thought he was just super creepy in that. And then I found out that he's the same one as is in this movie, and I was just shocked because I think that he's honestly like really cute in this. I mean, he has just super iconic but horrible dance skills in this movie. That I don't know if there's anybody who can dance worse than him. I mean, I might be somebody who can dance pretty badly too, but I think I would do a little bit better than he does in here. But that is just such a standout in this movie for me. I always think about that little dance that he does. It's so weird, but awesome at the same time. But I think that this one does have a lot of cool deaths and just a lot of interesting scenes throughout the film. And it is one that I will always want to rewatch anytime Friday the 13th rolls around. But now, in my number one spot, I do have Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And this one has been my mom's favorite for maybe since it's been out. I don't really know. I'd have to ask her, but I know she is going to be very excited when she watches this video. Um, that I have finally come around to her favorite one so much. But I think that this one is just a ton of fun. Now, this is my second favorite portrayal of Tommy Jarvis in here from Tom Matthews, but I think that he does a good job in here for sure. And obviously, he does bring Jason back to life when he digs him up and then decides to stab him with something metal, not really thinking about the fact that it could get hit by lightning and then bring him back to life. But if he hadn't made that really dumb decision, then we wouldn't have more of the movies in this franchise, so we can't really blame him too much for that, I guess. But I like the dynamic that he has with Megan, and I think that she is one of the better final girls in this franchise for sure. I think that she is just a lot of fun, and I really like her different friends that she has, the different camp counselors. Specifically, Court, I think, is just hilarious, whether it be his, stupid speech that he gives to the kids uh, early on in the film that are at the camp, or his scene in the RV with the girl that he's hooking up with, where she wants him to wait until the end of the song to be done with things, and the song has like a really long amount of time left. Just his reaction to that is comedy gold. I love that part of the movie. And honestly, just the whole RV scene is a standout here. I think that maybe before I had actually seen this entire movie, I might have seen clips of it at one point, maybe at a friend's house or something when I was younger, because there's definitely things about it that I remembered. And I think that that scene is just really well done. And so some other things that I like with this one, I guess primarily would be the fact that they really up the ante and actually do have kids at the camp, because that definitely works for me with kids being in peril. That always makes things a lot scarier. But I think that this one has a really good ending as well. I like getting to see Jason sink to the bottom of the lake and stuff. I really like when people have aquariums and they have a little Jason figurine at the bottom of theirs. That's definitely something that I'm going to have to do if I would ever get one of those. And honestly, I'm just happy that I finally did come around to Jason Lives, because I think it is just such a super fun watch for sure, and one that I'm definitely planning to watch a lot more of the Friday the 13th that will roll around as well. Oh, and I do have to just give a little shout out to the fact that the camp in this movie is the same one that they end up using in Fear Street Part 2, 1978, which I really love that trilogy, and I've got to end up talking about it at some point on my channel, but I just love the fact that it's the same camp in that as well. But I want to know your thoughts on this video down in the comments. Do you agree with my ranking, or would you rank them totally differently? Leave me your ranking down below, because I love reading all that stuff from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it and consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel, as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. If you would like either of those, they are in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting my channel so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.